In the bustling city of Hyderabad, India, the neighbors of a quiet two-story house began to notice something strange. A foul odor, sharp and suffocating, drifted through the air every evening. At first, people thought it was just spoiled food or garbage left too long in the heat. But the smell grew stronger, more unnatural, until it became impossible to ignore. When police finally stepped inside that modest home, what they uncovered seemed ripped straight from a nightmare. Broken fragments of bone, traces of cooked flesh, and tools stained with blood revealed a crime so gruesome that even seasoned investigators struggled to process it. At the center of this horror stood a man who was once celebrated as a disciplined soldier and respected officer, a husband and father named Pataguru Murthy. Calmly, he admitted, "I killed my wife." But the question that still lingers is far darker. Why would a man trained to protect his country turn into a monster inside his own home? This is the chilling story of a former police officer who murdered his wife, dismembered her body, and fed her remains to the fish of a city lake. A crime that shocked not only a neighborhood, but the entire nation of India.
Pataguru Murthy was born and raised in the Prakasam district of Andhra Pradesh, southern India. From a young age, he dreamed of serving his country, and for 15 years he did exactly that. Murthy became a sergeant in the Indian Army, part of an elite unit stationed in some of the harshest terrains, including the frozen battlefields of Siachen, one of the highest, deadliest military zones in the world. His colleagues described him as disciplined, quiet, and deeply committed to duty. When he retired around 2020, Murthy transitioned into civilian life, taking a job as a security officer at the Defense Research and Development Organization in Hyderabad. To the outside world, he seemed like a simple man, living by strict routines. He drank from steel cups instead of plastic, lived frugally, and carried the air of a soldier who never left the barracks behind. At home, Murthy lived with his wife, Patavenkata Madhavi, and their 2 young children. Neighbors described Madhavi as a soft-spoken woman, gentle and devoted to her family, a traditional homemaker who rarely interacted with outsiders. From the outside, theirs looked like an ordinary household, private, quiet, perhaps a little distant, but nothing unusual. Yet inside those walls, tension brewed. What began as a loving relationship gradually soured as Murthy grew more absorbed in his work and less present in family life. Madhavi carried the weight of raising the children alone. Arguments became routine, and suspicion began to poison the marriage. Murthy convinced himself that while he toiled at his job, his wife was unfaithful at home. Madhavi, in turn, confided in her mother about feeling suffocated in a marriage where she was denied even the smallest decisions, from choosing her children's milk to deciding holiday plans. By late 2024, their home had become a cage of silence, resentment, and escalating quarrels. What no one could predict was that these everyday disputes were about to spiral into an act of violence so brutal it would horrify an entire nation.
On January 15, 2025, the tension inside the Murthy household reached a breaking point. Madhavi told her husband she wanted to take their children to her parents' home in Nadiyan for the Sankranti festival, a chance for the children to be cared for by their grandmother, and for Madhavi herself to breathe, if only for a few days. But to Murthy, the request felt like defiance. He refused, insisting that the family would celebrate only with his side. The argument escalated late into the night, spilling over into bitter accusations. By the next morning, Madhavi's phone fell silent. For a woman who called her mother twice a day without fail, once in the morning before heading to the market and again at night before bed, the silence was deafening. Her parents grew anxious. Dozens of calls went unanswered. Each time they tried, they heard only the automated message, "The number you are trying to reach is switched off." 2 days passed with no word. On January 18, Madhavi's parents, Srinivas Rao and Subama, could no longer endure the uncertainty. They gathered relatives, drove over 300 kilometers to Hyderabad, and went straight to their daughter's rented home. Murthy greeted them calmly, telling them that after another argument, Madhavi had stormed out. He assumed she had gone back to her parents' house, but she had not. She never arrived. Desperate, her parents filed a missing persons report at the local police station, their voices breaking as they described their daughter's daily habits that made her sudden disappearance impossible to believe. To them, Madhavi was not a runaway. Something terrible had happened, and they begged the police to act quickly. What they did not yet know was that Madhavi had indeed left the house on January 15, but only in the company of her husband, captured on a nearby surveillance camera. What the footage revealed next would turn a missing persons case into a chilling murder investigation. When Hyderabad police received the missing persons report, they first treated it as a family dispute. After all, it was common for a wife to leave after an argument only to return days later. But Madhavi's parents were adamant. This was not like her. She would never vanish without contacting them, never leave her children behind, and above all, never abandon her phone. The first break in the case came from a surveillance camera across the street from the Murthy residence. On the night of January 15th at 10:40 p.m., the footage clearly showed Murthy and Madhavi walking into their home together. After that moment, Madhavi was never seen again. In all subsequent recordings, only Murthy appeared, carrying buckets and containers outside. The evidence was stark. Madhavi had entered the house, but she had never left it alive. Investigators pressed harder. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises the following night, the sound of chopping, dragging, and heavy thuds echoing through the walls. Along with the noise came a foul odor that spread through the street, so strong that residents stepped outside to escape it. When questioned, Murthy explained it away with a casual smile, claiming he was cooking talakaya kura, a goat's head curry. But neighbors, familiar with the dish, said the stench was different, almost unbearable. Inside the house, forensic teams discovered tiny droplets of blood scattered across walls and floors, patterns consistent with violent assault or dismemberment. They also found Madhavi's mobile phone still inside the home. For investigators, that detail was critical. In today's world, no one leaves their phone behind willingly. It was the silent witness that told them she had never left. The case had shifted. What began as a suspected disappearance was now treated as something far darker. The likely murder of a wife carried out within the very home she had shared with her children. When police confronted Murthy with the surveillance footage, his calm facade began to crumble. At first, he repeated the same story. Madhavi had stormed out after an argument, and he had no idea where she went. But the images left no room for lies. She was seen entering the house with him and never leaving again. After hours of questioning, Murthy finally broke. In a flat, detached voice, he admitted what the evidence already suggested: "I killed her." What followed was a confession so gruesome, it horrified even veteran investigators. Murthy described how, on the morning of January 16th, another argument erupted when Madhavi insisted on visiting her mother for the festival. In a fit of rage, he struck her, and the fight escalated into deadly violence. When it was over, Madhavi lay lifeless on the floor. Panic set in. Afraid of the consequences and unwilling to face his children's questions, Murthy turned his thoughts to concealment. Inspired by online videos he had watched about disposing of bodies, he devised a plan. He stripped Madhavi's body, cut it into pieces, and boiled parts of it in large pots. Some he roasted over open flames, while others he ground into fragments. The stench was overpowering, seeping through the neighborhood. When suspicious neighbors knocked on his door, Murthy claimed he was preparing a goat head curry. They left uneasy but unconvinced. Behind the closed door, he pressed on with his grim task. Murthy splashed bone powder down the toilet,
packed cooked remains into an empty paint bucket, and carried them 4 kilometers away to a local lake. There, under the cover of night, he dumped the pieces into the water, hoping the fish would erase every trace of his crime. Back at home, he scrubbed every surface, doused the rooms with perfume, and locked the bedroom where the dismemberment had taken place. By the time he picked up his children from his sister's house, he appeared calm, as if nothing had happened. But the truth could not stay hidden. The blood traces, the camera footage, and his own chilling confession painted a picture of a crime both premeditated and unimaginably cruel. When news of Murthy's confession spread, Hyderabad erupted in shock. This was not just another domestic violence case. It was a horror story that blurred the line between crime and nightmare. Newspapers splashed the headline across their front pages, television channels replayed the gruesome details, and crowds gathered outside the Murthy home, desperate to glimpse the scene of the crime. The most chilling detail was the disposal of Madhavi's remains in the local wake. Forensic divers scoured the waters, but by the time they arrived, the body had already been consumed. With the lake covering over 4 square kilometers and serving as a source of fish for thousands of residents, panic swept through the community. Rumors spread like wildfire. Had people unknowingly eaten fish that had fed on human flesh? Within days, the story reached national media, leaving an entire country horrified. Whispers also swirled about Murthy's true motives. Some claimed he killed Madhavi in a fit of rage, while others suggested he had planned the murder in advance, waiting for the holiday season when neighbors were away. There were even reports that he may have been involved in an affair and that Madhavi's insistence on spending Sankranti with her own family threatened to expose him. None of these theories could be proven, but they only fueled the public's obsession. For many, the case became a grim symbol of deeper social issues: the suffocating weight of patriarchal control, the dangers of unchecked suspicion, and the silent suffering of women trapped in marriages where their voices carried no power. The tragedy of Madhavi's death resonated far beyond Hyderabad, sparking debates about domestic violence and the failures of a system that often overlooks warning signs until it is too late. The murder of Madhavi by her husband Padaguru Murthy is a chilling reminder of how suspicion and control can turn love into violence. What began as family quarrels ended in one of India's most shocking crimes: a man killing his wife, dismembering her body, and feeding the remains to fish. Yet many questions remain. Was this a sudden outburst of rage or a carefully planned act? And what does it reveal about hidden dangers within marriages bound by silence and control? What do you think? Was Murthy driven by jealousy in the heat of the moment, or did he plan everything long before? Share your thoughts in the comments.